This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. This is a very special edition of Around the Oval, a four Wisemen edition of Around the Oval. No, we are not bringing in the four Wisemen of Ohio State football for this episode. That will be tomorrow all day on BuckeyeScoop.com. You could go to Ask the Insiders message board. Nevadabuck will have his four Wisemen on all day through the NFL draft, answering all your questions if you're a subscriber of Buckeye Scoop. So if you're not already, definitely think about at least giving us a shot. To me, the price of admission is just worth getting access to the four Wisemen for an entire day. But I think you'll find that a lot of the other stuff we have on the site is going to be worth it as well. But as I mentioned, it's the four Wisemen edition. And so we kind of bring in the guy who created the four Wisemen of Ohio State football, Nevadabuck. Nevada, thanks for joining the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an honor and a privilege. You are a legend in Ohio State football. It's been a pleasure working alongside you now at both at Buckeye Grove and now at Buckeye Scoop. I think we got a really awesome thing going here, and I'm glad, Kirk, Mark, you, Bill, and the rest of the gang that kind of started forming this thing before I got involved, invited me to join. So it's been a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, no, it's been we've had a great 10 months and coming up on our year anniversary and I think we're just kind of scratching the surface in terms of what we can do. And as you said, we've got a big chat coming up. I'm actually headed to Ohio and we'll actually be in God's country for the summit meeting on the day of the NFL draft. And we got a lot of great things going on Thursday. So it's a big week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll touch on the kind of 1 year anniversary of the Scoop in just a minute. But before we dive into that, there might be some people listening who kind of have heard this Nevadabuck guy and, maybe just see your Nuggets teased on Twitter or lots of Canes gifts and things like that. But let's just, for those people listening who aren't Scoop members, who aren't message board aficionados for Ohio State, tell them a little bit about, we're not going to reveal your real identity. We, of course, never do that, but who you are when it comes to being Nevadabuck. How did you get started in this, and kind of what's your role in delivering the goods when it comes to Ohio State athletics?
I'm just a guy who's a huge Ohio State fan. Been an Ohio State fan my whole life. Mom went to Ohio State. Dad grew up, a huge fan. The entire family was big Ohio State fans, and just have been kind of got lured into the message board life. Almost 20 years ago, Bill Green and I started talking on one of these old boards, and started finding out that a lot of the contacts that I had in my other life were relevant to Ohio State, and had some decent information about Ohio State football, and it's kind of grown from there, where we've just kind of continued to expand the network, and now we've got a great range of sources, and including four primary sources that we call the four Wisemen of Ohio State football, that have been with me almost since the beginning, and have really been a great source of information and insight and stories and anecdotes and things about Ohio State football. So it's been a lot of fun taking the journey with them and sharing it with people along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I've been following your journey almost since the start. I grew up in New Jersey. I wasn't an Ohio State fan. I actually really disliked Michigan growing up. I think every friend group has the one really obnoxious fan friend. And for me, that guy was brought up a huge Michigan fan. He ended up going to Michigan, still a Michigan fan to this day, now raising his kids as a Michigan fan. And so me and all my friends really didn't like Michigan. So every year I would always root for Ohio State in the game. But until I started looking at colleges and deciding Ohio State was where I wanted to go, I didn't really follow Ohio State too much. But I was a big North Carolina basketball fan growing up, and I would follow basketball recruiting really, really closely, and was on the message boards a little bit there as I got into high school for North Carolina. And so when I decided, Ohio State was going to be the place I was going to go, this was probably like 2004. I started reading, I guess, what was the former Bucknuts Scout combined site where you and Bill were on. And that was my first introduction to you and kind of this whole recruiting thing. And I just got fascinated in it. And it definitely spurred my interest in doing this, which I started doing toward the tail end of my college career. And obviously sitting here now about 13 years later, with the Scoop and you, it's kind of full circle for me. So that's really been awesome. And, you mentioned we're coming up on a year of the Scoop. I think it's June 4th. So we're a little over a month away from that. I mean, you were one of the people brought in early. I was kind of, I would call it a later addition from like the core crew setup that you guys knew you were going to roll out with. Just, I mean, for me, I know what my expectations were, but sitting here almost a year later, tell me, like, is this site everything you imagined? Is it more? Is it not even? Because to me, I mean, I think it's been incredible, but I don't even think we've scratched the surface yet, which is scary. But I know from a numbers perspective, we've exceeded what Mark at least had set forth. But from your expectations, being in this business for so long, just reflect a little bit on 1 year of the Scoop with me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you expect the answer. The pat answer is, oh, everything's great, Alex. Everything's terrific. Boy, we're happy. Everything's great. But the reality is that's really where we're at. What's been great for me is I've learned so much about the business in the past 11 months. I really feel like I've been operating for the past 2 decades and really only I knew the message board part pretty well, and clearly, I knew how to communicate information and share information and do things like that. But there was an entire other world of Google ads and podcasting and YouTube and Spreaker and all these different things and all these different ways to communicate, all these different audiences to meet. But I really feel that I was only operating on a very small percentage of capacity. And now as I've had a chance to kind of immerse myself in that for this past year, it's been fantastic. And to have the freedom here at this site to come up with ideas and implement ideas and then go with them without having to, really talk to anybody other than the principals, it's incredible. It's an incredible freedom to have, creatively. And, hopefully we've been able to deliver the goods. And we're constantly asking for feedback from our members. And I think the members are happy with what we're doing, and we're going to continue to crank it out. And it's just, we're having a lot of fun doing it, and hopefully people could tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was at 11 Warriors to start my career for 5 years. I was at Bucknuts and 24/7 Sports for another 6 years. I was at Buckeye Grove for a year. And now I'm at the Scoop. And so having been at kind of all 4 of those platforms, they're very different. And, I think there's pros and cons to everywhere I've been before, but I can't find really a con being a part of the Scoop. I mean, just it's been a lot of fun. And this is a year where we almost didn't have Big Ten football. We didn't have any recruiting visits. We didn't have any coach evaluations or camps or things like that. So it's been challenging, a really challenging year to start a business and a website on Ohio State football. And I think we've done an incredible job, not to toot our own horn too much, but I'm really excited about what the next year kind of has in store for our fans. And hopefully everyone on the site already is telling all their friends and everything like that, because I think even bigger and better is coming. So really, really exciting. And one of the most exciting things I think is coming is tomorrow, the 4 Wisemen chat. Again, there might be some people listening who aren't that familiar with the 4 Wisemen of Ohio State football. Tell us a little bit about the history of the Wisemen and your relationship with them and how they kind of came to be.
Yeah, well, the 4 Wisemen, when I started doing the message board thing, I started sharing information. I still remember one of the first things that I shared was that Ohio State was playing Wisconsin, and they were working on a punt block. And I remember talking about that because I'd gotten that from somebody. You didn't want to give away too much, but kind of shared some things about that. And some things came to pass, and I started to realize that some of the information that I had was good and valuable and was interesting to people. So I started, kind of culling my my contacts, and over time we'd get together, and a couple of us would get together and have lunch, or we'd get together and have dinner. And one day, it was the four of us, or I should say the five of us, myself and four others, and one of them just said, "Hey, I guess we're the four Wisemen," and it just kind of stuck. And it was just it was funny to me when he said it. And these guys are terrific, resources for Ohio State football. They're around Ohio State football. They've been around Ohio State football. I've never given up their identities, and I don't intend to until one of them dies, and then I'll feel pretty sure who it was. But they've been great resources, and they're having a lot of fun with it. And we literally have not been together. We have not been in the same room for years. So to have all five of us back together in Ohio right before the draft is really, really special, and I'm really, really excited about it. And the chat on Thursday is going to be a blast. It's going to be mayhem, and there'll be a lot of great stories and a lot of liquor flowing, and it's going to be mayhem, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super, super excited about it. I know we don't want to reveal their identities or give too many clues away, although I know Zach Smith's probably listening very closely to try to hunt down some clues. But I guess the one thing I'll ask you is, do any of the Wisemen or all of them have a certain expertise? Like, is one of them your coaching staff guru? Is one of them your practice guru? Is one of them your kind of off the field player stuff guru? Like, do any of them have like a niche like that, or is it just kind of they're all sources that kind of pick up a number of different things?
I think that they certainly overlap, but I certainly have one that I go to things more healthcare, medical type of related, and one that's more kind of admin, Big Ten type of issues related, and one that's more kind of staff, internal types of things related, and then another one is just kind of a catch-all who kind of just gets a lot of different things. And so I think they certainly have their niches, but they've definitely gone over time. I found that you'd be amazed the type of information that they come up with, and just little things that they pass on. And we're always really careful we're not going to share personal injury information about players that's not out there. We're not going to share information that can hurt the program. We're not going to share information that could help the other team that we're in a game prep or something like that. But I think I've kind of learned how to craft this stuff after doing this for 2 decades. And like I said, the guys know, they know when they share information with me that I'll handle it the right way. And that's really important because we all love Ohio State. And that's the one thing that bonds us all together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be fun to see what they all have to say tomorrow during the chat. And I guess when it comes to the timing of it, what time do you think you guys are going to get kicked off on Thursday?
Oh, it's going to be early. I mean, I would think that, we'll probably be kicked off, 9 a.m. Eastern time, and we'll go right up to the draft. So it's going to be, it's going to be a long day. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can from people. It's always hard in these things. And some people will ask a question with 17 different parts, and you're trying to just the act of typing it is very difficult sometimes. But going to be there, and just we'll just grind away through as many questions as fast as we can, and try to share as many great stories as we can.
Yeah, I was going to say we might have to get them some voice changers or something in the future, and you do it on a Zoom where fans could hop in and ask questions, because you might have carpal tunnel by the end of that, by the end of Thursday night, just typing everything out. So
we actually talked about the voice changer thing, because the problem with the voices is people would recognize the voice. They would definitely recognize the voices, but we actually toyed with the idea of the voice changer thing, but it just got too hard. So I'm just like, screw it, I'm going to do it the old fashioned way. But we're by the end of the day, I'm going to be ready to drop for sure.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I think it's going to be the biggest thread ever that the Scoop's seen. I think it's going to be all day, just nonstop, tons of questions. So you better be ready to type. But I don't want to give, I'll let the chat be the place where all the questions are answered. But just wanted to do a little tease. I'm sure you spoke to the four Wisemen about their kind of just general thoughts heading into this next season for Ohio State. I think it's a really interesting one. One of the more interesting seasons in a while, just because of the new quarterback and the unknowns there. And while, there's been the change to Justin Fields from JT Barrett, and, it was like, what happens when Braxton Miller gets hurt? Maybe that was the last season where maybe it was this kind of big of a question mark at quarterback. They lost they lost all four of their top linebackers. They lost, Trey Sermon, who was an excellent player toward the end of the season, a couple of All-American offensive linemen. So there's a lot of question marks around this team, but there's no doubt they're obviously talented. What is just the general vibe of the four Wisemen about this team heading into the season? That's the only thing I'll ask you. I'll let the chat kind of be the place where the rest of it gets answered.
Yeah, well, I think the consensus seems to be that one, this is a really exciting group of incoming freshmen, maybe the most polished group of incoming freshmen that we've ever had. I mean, you've got some big time talents that have come in the door, and guys that are going to be immediate impact, and players like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trayvon Henderson. I mean, you've got guys that are really, really, really top end, and it's really exciting to see them come in and see what they can do. And I think from a question mark standpoint, I think there's legitimate concern about the defense, and I think the defense got exposed a little bit, as it were, at the end of the year against Alabama. And I think this is a year where Kerry Combs has got to step up, and I think people are looking at him hard in terms of how well is he going to do, and how well is that defense going to do. And I know OSU's been doing some different things they did through the spring defensively, but I think that's the big question mark. I think everybody's excited about the offense and a little bit nervous about the defense, and that's kind of the consensus.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think we're sitting here in a year, and Kerry Combs is still the defensive coordinator of Ohio State. I think, I'm not saying they're going to win a championship, but I think that we'll be pretty satisfied with the way the defense played. And if he's not the defensive coordinator, I think you're going to know that the defense didn't have such a great year. So I agree with you. I think that's a quarterback. There will be some bumps and growing pains and things like that. I think overall they'll be fine with one of the three guys in that room emerging, but I think the key of the season is going to lie on the defense. So, I'm sure the Wisemen will dive into that in their chat. One more topic before we let you jump. You started a thread on the board on Tuesday, we'll call it late afternoonish, on some things you were hearing about Tennessee linebacker transfer, Henry To'o. That is the correct pronunciation of his name. He's an All-American, All-SEC type of linebacker that's, from what I'm hearing, deciding between pretty much Ohio State and Alabama. By the time this podcast comes out, who knows, he may have announced his decision, but just tell everyone listening a little bit more about what you're hearing on To'o and what he could mean to the Ohio State defense if he does choose to come to the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I think this is one that we've been monitoring for a while. I think you were the first site to have the fact that he had legitimate interest in Ohio State. I think a lot of people had him, penciled in for Bama going back a long way. And, he's a guy that's been hanging around, and Al Washington and Ryan Day have done a tremendous job recruiting him. There's a strong Polynesian connection to Columbus, in general, and Ohio State in particular. And, Ohio State's, as we talked about earlier, Ohio State's missing all their linebackers, and Bama's returning 3. So you've got, there's a real opportunity for him to step right in and play. And apparently, I'm digging a little bit deeper into this, but apparently there's some sort of an issue where he needs to be enrolled at Ohio State by Monday in order to be eligible to play in the fall. And I'm not sure what that has to do. It may have to do with his transfer status or credits, or I'm not sophisticated enough to know exactly why, but that seems to be a driving issue that's driving this decision. And so, if you're sitting in his situation, he's waiting on Bama and the SEC to decide on the transfer rule. And for Ohio State, the door would close on Monday if he didn't choose. And we're hearing that a decision is imminent. It could be anytime. It could have happened by the time that this podcast airs. But it's certainly going to be something that's decided this week. And fingers crossed that it's Ohio State, because he would be he would solve a lot of questions for the Ohio State defense. And he would walk in, him and Haskell Garrett being the two best defensive players on the team, and he would be a huge addition if this gets pulled off. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think he's a one and done type of talent. I think he's that good. And, I think they're fine with what they have at linebacker. I think they feel that way, but you don't say no to a 5-star type of talent that could come in and start right away. And you are right. I had a very, very wise man who's very connected to the Ohio State defense tell me about To'o and the mutual interest. And I think we put that out there first way back when, a couple months back. And now, between the updates that Bill and I think Mark a little bit and you provided throughout up until this nugget. So if you're a VIP subscriber of Buckeye Scoop, definitely go to the Ask the Insiders board. Check that out. If you're not, again, another reason to join us in the Scoop fam. But yeah, between that and the Wiseman chat, again, figure about 9 Eastern time. Don't hold us to that exactly, but around that range, going through the NFL draft. I'm really jealous I don't get to be in the room with you guys. I don't know what the drink of choice is, but whatever it is, I'll be toasting with you guys from New Jersey, and enjoying the chat, and hopefully everyone else will be too.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and like I said, I can't wait for Thursday. It's just gonna be great to be back in Ohio. It's always feels good whenever I'm there, and it's just I'm really excited. It's a big week for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Nevada, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Again, for Wiseman chat all day, Thursday, April 29th. Ask the Insiders board on Buckeye Scoop. If you're not a subscriber, just head to buckeyescoop.com. Join today, as my good friend Tom Orr and the excellent host of our whole podcast network likes to say, it's cheaper than a lousy chain pizza. So I think one day this 4 Wiseman chat will be worth the price of admission, and then everything else like the To'o nuggets and a variety of other features and pieces that we have on a daily basis, I think make it well worth your money and your time to be a part of the Scoop fam. So thanks again, Nevada. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing what you and the Wiseman bring to the table.
Thanks so much.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.